Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Unlocking Business Potential with Fractional Expertise. My name is Colin Mahan, and I'm a Director of Programs at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit that's building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. As you're going to see in the chat in just a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So check out those links and resources in the chat. Now, I've got a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Firstly, let us know where you're dialing in from. See if you got a neighbor. Let's see. Secondly, we're going to open up for live Q&A near the end of the event, so please submit those questions for us in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation. We'll try our best to get to them all. None of what we do at the center would be possible without all the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, BMO, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, BPM, and HubSpot for Startups. We're humbled by their contributions and hope you're grateful too. Now, before we get started, I'm going to launch a couple polls to just take a step back and take a temperature gauge on how all of us are doing. All right, Seattle. San Francisco, welcome. All righty, well, the first question is, how are you feeling about your business now? We use this information to provide the wellness programs and resources that we provide for our entrepreneurs. Looks like there's a healthy dose of optimism out there. All righty, sunny Florida. I'm gonna run this poll for just another minute. Howdy from Dallas, Texas. Welcome. All righty, I'm going to end this poll. Share those results. Looks like optimism is in the lead, but there's a little bit of survival mode and anxiety out there. Hopefully our presentation today will be able to help. Second poll I'm going to launch is, what's keeping you up at night? We use this direct information to provide the targets for the programs that we're going to be hosting in the next couple of months. So let us know. Ooh, looks like finance and sales are in almost of a tie here. And this poll here. Share those results. Looks like finance and sales are almost an exact a tie, but pretty good mix. So thanks for participating in that last poll. Couple more polls, and then we'll get us going. So let's see how many employees. This one is for our founders out there. This will help our presenter understand where you're at and where you're trying to be and where she should be focusing her energy on the call today. How many employees do you have? 1, 2 to 5, or solopreneur? All right, looks like a pretty good mix here. All righty, I'm going to end this poll. Share those results. Looks like it's a pretty good mix, but many have 2 to 5 and many solopreneurs out there. So should be a good presentation today. Last one, what's your current role? Are you an aspiring entrepreneur? Side hustle, early stage, C-suite, or board member? Some super helpful. Thank you for participating. Alrighty, I'm going to end that poll. Share these results. Looks like a decent mix, but early stage entrepreneurs in the lead. So without any further delay, please join me in giving a warm welcome in the chat to our special guest. We've got Stephanie Warlick, who's the founder and CEO of 5 Foot View Consulting, LLC. Stephanie, welcome, and over to you.
Thanks for having me, Colin. I appreciate being here with you all today. The NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. Thanks for taking time. There's a good number of you here today. And I also know, as a small business owner and entrepreneur, how valuable your time is. And really am grateful that you took time to be with me today. I hope that I'll provide you valuable information to help you grow and scale your business, which is what I do, help people grow and scale their businesses. Looks like 50% of you out there have employees. And before we get started, I'll give you right off the bat a valuable piece of information that will help you know the value of a fractional executive. For those of you who don't have someone watching out for your labor laws that are out there, within the last hour, Department of Labor did come out with their laws about the new overtime and exemptions for for exempt employees. So get ready, by July 1, you will need to pay your employees $43,888 if they're exempt or non-exempt. That's the minimum. If you don't choose to pay them that amount, anything below that needs to be overtime if they go over 40 hours. And by January 1 of 2025, 58,656 is the new salary. This all was just written within the last hour. You've got time to prepare, but we'll talk about some of those fractional executives that you may need very soon as a small business owner to help you prepare for these laws that change regularly. So I'm going to jump into my slides here today.
Oh, Stephanie, you muted yourself somehow.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was saying I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, actually in Maryland. So I'm looking forward to hearing all your questions later. Please feel free to load them up into the chat and I'll give you as much information as I can. Jumping over to my slides and into present mode. Bear with me 1 second. I was sharing with the NASDAQ team, I'm using Canvas slides for the first time. So can you see my slides or no? No, I need to go back into screen share mode. Sorry about that. NASDAQ team, I probably should have just turned this part over to you, huh?
You're doing great.
Thanks. I am having trouble getting back to you. Please bear with me. There we go. How about that? How's it looking for you guys over there now? Are we in full screen?
Great. No, it's perfect.
Yeah. Wow. Whew. It's a good thing I wore extra deodorant for this meeting. Okay, moving on. So 50% of you had employees. That's great. You're in scaling mode. It looks like about 40% were also regularly conducting this business and it's not a side hustle. So maybe you're ready for growth. And I'm just going to share with you. Your hair is on fire. I know that. I've been a small business owner. I've owned 5 small businesses in my career. And the biggest challenges are there's simply not enough time in the day. You want to scale more quickly. You're making critical errors that are impacting your business. You're not responding to clients on time. You can't get that proposal done, or you might be impacting your delivery and production. And then there's the fact that maybe your growth is just outpacing your knowledge. So you started this business because you love to make a widget, or you have a certain skill that you want to promote, and you don't know all the aspects of running a business. And that's what is so great about fractional leadership, because help is just around the corner. What is fractional leadership? It's an executive that has experience that can join you at a fraction of the cost of what their salary would be if they worked for a corporation, and in fact work for you flexibility as you need. There is great flexibility. You pick and choose what the fractional executive may do for your company, and they are available at a schedule that you select. Often you will see fractional executives in the COO role, CFO role, CMO role, Chief Product Officer, CPO. If anybody doesn't know any of the acronyms that I'm using, please let me know. I'll be happy to expand on that further. You can just feed me the questions, but I think these are pretty common, and I'll dig into them a little bit further right here for you. So the fractional roles that I just rattled off in those acronyms: Chief Marketing Officer. This is a great fractional executive to bring in when you're at a startup range. You need to start marketing. You've got to get your name out there. My first small business, there was barely even an internet. It was just coming out. And so the way we do business now is very different than the way we used to do business in terms of marketing. There is no yellow pages. Most people that are buyers now don't even know what the yellow pages are. So we've got to figure out how to market and get in front of our customers that are our ideal audience. The COO, how do you run a business? Who's going to help with the processes? Who's going to help you document them so you can have sustainable and repeatable results that are successful? That's a COO. The CEO, that would be a great person to bring in at a fractional level. If you say, I thought I was going to be working on this type of business, but it turns out what my customers really need is this. And that person helps you transform the business into what you need it to be. Chief Human Resources Officer. Man, the labor laws out there change daily. We talked about that here at the beginning of the call. And it's really important that we stay on top of the compliance, not only for you as a business, but gosh, the importance of culture and establishing a place where employees want to be is critical. It's critical because our labor force is shrinking. And if you want to get top talent, you're going to have to do something to make it a place they want to be, whether it's virtual or in person. And a CHRO can help you with that. The chief financial officer, of course, they're the numbers person, but they're also the strategy person and can help you with restructuring. They can sometimes range from helping you perform the budgets and the analysis of your profitability, and may go into bookkeeping results. Most CFOs won't do bookkeeping, but some do. The chief revenue officer. Are you trying to get more profitability in your product line? How to price a product, how to reach that customer audience, how to package your products so that you can get as much profitability as possible. That's your CRO, fractional leader. And then, of course, a CPO, the chief product officer. That's going to be the person that's going to help you launch and create products to sell to your customers, keep that innovation going, and really get your product to market. Those are just a few, by the way. Any executive leader could serve in a fractional role. Those are the most common C-suite labels that you'll see out there. There are some pros and cons. I'll go through each of them. Of course, I'm a big fan of all the pros, but let's be fully transparent about what cons you might experience as an entrepreneur and small business owner. Of course, there is strategic agility. That is the value of bringing in someone that has 30 years of experience. As a small business owner, you could expect to pay a C-suite person anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 easily. Maybe that includes profit share and commission sometimes. With a fractional executive, you don't have to do that. You pay them for the hours they give you or the project that they work, or a retainer for a short period of time. And we'll talk about pricing in just a moment. But certainly it is cost effective. When someone is a fractional, they serve as a 1099 employee or 1099 consultant, excuse me, where you don't owe them benefits. You don't have to give them a retirement and so forth. So it's really cost effective for small businesses to gain that exposure and that experience and that expertise without the full blown price tag. And then, of course, fresh perspectives. Each time you're able to bring someone in with an executive that has lots of other experience than you do, you have the opportunity to grow and expand your business and look at it in new ways to help you increase your growth and expansion. Again, there are a couple of cons that I've identified here. Limited commitment. Fractional executives do work for multiple people. So at any given time, you can expect that a fractional executive has probably at least 5 clients that they work on for a handful of hours a week. Again, many are later in their career looking for work-life balance. They want to perform the work that they love, but they're not working probably 60 hours a week. So you might be able to get them 5 or 10 hours a week, maybe less. That's to be negotiated between you and a fractional executive. There could be integration challenges. We have seen that when an outside executive is brought into the workspace, sometimes other employees there are like, why do I have to listen to that person? They're not even really an employee here. And that can be a little bit of a challenge. So there is work by the leadership that brings that fractional executive in to really make sure that the other employees understand that this person's here to help us, and they have only one interest, and that is to help us be successful and grow. And you know what? The best thing to keep in mind for those other employees is the fractional executive. If they've done their job well, they're going to work themselves out of a job. And that's when you know they've done a great job, because they launch your business into the next phase where you don't need them, and you will be ready to hire a full-time employee. Finally, the more in depth you do get ingrained with a fractional executive, there could be the risk of transfer of knowledge. However, you can expect that a fractional executive would stay on with you and train the person that they would hand that set of responsibilities over to. So that can be easily mitigated. Before I jump into the next slide, because I am going very quickly, NASDAQ team, can you let me know, are there any critical questions so far that I should address before I move on to the next slide?
Nothing other than people asking if they can get the slides from you after.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank you for that. So some success stories of of others that have used fractional executives. We've got one tech startup that had a 50% increase in product delivery and 30% reduction in costs. That person had skills, knowledge, experience, and time to devote to some projects that the owner just couldn't get to. And how amazing for them. You've got a mid-size enterprise that was able to double their digital engagement in 6 months because they were able to bring in a marketing specialist that knew exactly what they were doing. And then finally, another organization in manufacturing firm brought in a CFO. They thought they could get by with the owner that was a business major and a bookkeeper, but really the CFO was able to apply a level of strategic value and really help them improve their financials and get to the profitability that they wanted. A more recent, very personal story. I was serving as a fractional executive COO and chief human resources officer for another company. And because of my varied experience, I was able to serve as the call center manager for a company for a 2-month period because someone left with no notice. And I filled in the gaps. They said, "Have you ever run a call center?" I said, "No, but that looks like a project. That's people, systems, and process. I can do that." And I successfully ran the call center, hired 20 people within 4 days, ran a call center for 2 months, and they met all of their end of year deadlines. So when you have someone that is working with you that has experience, it really can not only expand your growth, but keep you on track so that you can focus on what is best for you. I like to say that fractional executives work in the business while you work on the business, which is exactly what small business owners should be doing. So we asked, or we talked about briefly with the life cycle of what part of the business you're in. We've got a variety of stages and phases that individuals are working on here. But the fractional executives can best be utilized during the startup phase to help you do all of those little nitty-gritty things, the new laws that are coming out about registering with the federal agents or keeping an eye on your compliance. Do you have an employee that's remote in X and such state and you're in this state? Well, guess what? You've got to follow the laws now of both states. Lots of small business owners don't know that. So they can help you during that startup phase really understand the implications of hiring, of setting up your sales tax appropriately, of getting your marketing going so that you reach your audience, depending on the type of fractional COO you bring in. And by the way, there's no reason you can't have multiple fractional COOs serving you as 1099 consultants. But if you're in a phase of rapid growth and scaling, again, we know your hair is on fire. There's only so many hours of the day. And, your family members are wondering when you're going to show up at some point. You'll say, well, as soon as I go to the bathroom and eat something and then do these 10 proposals and respond to these 6 customers, I'll be over for dinner. And that's the reality of it. And I get it. The sleep doesn't even come in there anywhere. So if you're in a phase of restructuring and turnaround, that's also an excellent time to use a fractional executive. That is often an area where small business owners don't have experience, and just bringing in an executive that has those experiences just can take that weight off your shoulders. And of course, if there's going to be a sale or further investment, bringing in someone that really knows how to do it is the answer. even in this most recent small business that I established, I think with all my years of experience, I can do this. I don't need to pay someone. And then I get there and I think this just took me 10 times longer than it needed to. And I could have paid someone this small amount of money and they would have had it done last week in less time and money. And I would have not been behind on all of these other tasks that I need to do. So even for myself as a fractional executive, I use other fractional executives and recognize the value in just optimizing skills and abilities of others so that I can do what's best for my business. And how do fractional leaders charge for their services? There's a variety of ways, and that is negotiated on a fractional leader and customer perspective each time. But it could be project-based. That's a really great way to test the waters to see if you guys like each other, if the person could fit into your culture, and if you like their responsiveness. Hourly is also an option. Most fractional executives do not like to work on an hourly basis because it really commoditizes the work that they perform. And really it's difficult to price 30 years of experience that a small business owner or a new small business owner is getting. So often you would find that a fractional executive, if they were going to charge hourly, because that's what you're most comfortable with, it would typically be a higher rate than if you just paid them like by a project or on a monthly or quarterly basis. Many engagements are performed under a monthly or quarterly retainer. Retainer, obviously, in traditional terms, means you pay them a set of money up front, and then they work off that balance under another set of hours. You know, I'm going to pay $5,000 this month, and that's going to equal 20 hours, and they just work it down. I personally and other colleagues that I know use the term retainer loosely, where the customer agrees that they will give 20 hours of work in an X period of time for X amount of money, but it's not prepaid, it's invoiced after the fact with the level of detail of how those 20 hours were spent. So that's a really nice flexible option for everybody. Of course, the rates that any fractional executive charge are dependent upon their availability, whether you require remote services or in-person services, whether you need them to travel, and the level of risk and responsibility associated with the position could also determine the cost of the engagement. Oh my goodness. All right. I do have more slides. I'm just making you wonder what the next slide is. It doesn't want to proceed all of a sudden. Does anybody know if Mercury is still in retrograde? Because I think it's full blast on today. Can't make it happen. Doesn't want to go to my next slide. Bear with me 1 second, folks.
Awesome. Well, we got time for Q&A, folks.
Yep. I'm back. Colin, thank you. My last slide, it looks like it was just my last slide with my contact information, and I'll be happy to share out the whole deck for everyone.
Great. Well, we'll roll into Q&A. It was super helpful and informative. Somebody has a question here. Is it better to hire a CEO or a CTO or CFO for in your own state for tax purposes?
CTO or CFO?
Yeah.
Okay, well, a CTO is a chief technology officer, so that person would not be involved in finances at all. If you're talking about taxes, a CFO could perhaps help, but most CFOs aren't tax accountants. So even in that, organizations typically have a separate tax accountant, but a CFO would be able to appropriately help get ready for a tax accountant.
Great. Another question here, average hourly rate for a fractional CFO.
Again, I would say that there is no average because many folks perform the work on a retainer basis, depending on, again, the factors that we talked about, which are they in the office? Are they traveling? Are they out of office? Do you need them to be available 24/7? Do you just want them to lead an executive meeting once a week or once a month? There are so many factors that are involved. I would say there is no average.
But ballpark for a retainer, I guess. Would that
But retainer for what? A chief,
or
so someone could have 10, let's just say chief marketing officer. You could have someone with 10 years of experience that has just decided to go out on their own and leave the corporate world that might charge $80 an hour. But a chief marketing officer that has 30 years of experience with high-end corporations and digital marketing and public relations and all of those things under their belt might charge $180 an hour. It really does depend on the experience and the work that is required.
great. What should we look for in terms of qualifications? You mentioned the 10-year experience. Anything else that you look for in terms of minimum qualifications?
I think qualifications are unique to each organization with what they need. So you'd be looking at the individual's experience and interview them just as if you would be interviewing an employee. A great source is to look out on LinkedIn, and this is where you can also recruit fractional executives, is to really place a job position and say this position is a fractional 1099 consultant position, and research out there the skills and experience that you need. Again, you might say, I just need really basic digital marketing. Somebody who's been doing this 5 years can meet my needs. But if you really need someone planning strategy and executing and running a department and managing others, you probably need someone with significantly more experience.
Awesome. Let's see. Another question here. How do you find these people?
So I use LinkedIn right now for all the resourcing that I need. You can post positions for free, and you can also pay to boost the positions to get out. But I would post the position just like a regular job and make sure individuals know upfront that it is fractional and it is a 1099 contractor position.
Okay, let's see. Got a lot of great questions coming in. Reframing the question, hiring a fractional C-suite, would it be advantageous for that hired fractional resource to be in the same state?
The value of having someone in the state is if you're going to have them in a highly compliant position where they might need to know the state regulations. So that does depend on the industry and the position. If you do not require the person to be on site, then there is no need for the person to be in the same state. I work with clients all over the country.
Let's see. What can advisors and mentors be termed as fractional expertise?
Can advisors and mentors be termed
as fractional expertise, so defined as.
Well, fractional just means part-time or fractional temporary, could be long-term, but often it's a more temporary basis, and it means part-time. So any expert or any individual that feels that they have experience that they can share and sell their services to someone else can be a fractional executive.
Awesome. And yeah, somebody just asked, does fractional leadership have to be paid? And I think you just answered that.
Fortunately, I'm not able to volunteer all my services at this time. So most people who are doing fractional work are doing it because they do want to work for themselves. They do have expertise that they can offer a variety of clients. And for a fractional executive, it's fun and interesting to not just work for one place and to spread your experience across many companies. It also then makes them more valuable and more skilled because of the variety of experiences that they have.
Should you have a subtractor agreement with a fractional?
Absolutely. Any person that you would hire as a 1099, whether they're a fractional executive or any other 1099, I would recommend a subcontract agreement. even if they're family.
Is their compensation treated as regular cost of goods sold 1099 overhead?
It is definitely 1099. Where you categorize the accounting for that particular position really depends on how your books are set up. So I would say, if it's an HR person, yes, that would be an overhead. If it's a CTO person, that would be an overhead. If it's an attorney, and we didn't kind of talk about that today, but let's say you hire a fractional attorney, that might be under legal services, and that might be bucketed a little bit differently than the general overhead. If you hire a chief product officer, that might be in a research and development bucket, and not general overhead. So it really depends on your industry, again, your business and your books.
Great. Let's see. Any other places to go to find fractionals outside of LinkedIn?
Any place that you would post a job. So you could certainly do that with Indeed. I have used LinkedIn so much and LinkedIn Sales Navigator so much over the last handful of years that I haven't used a lot of other services. But certainly any place where you would be posting a position for a regular job is where you would find fractional leadership.
Amazing. These are all good questions. Keep them coming, folks.
Thank you for all the questions.
When choosing what are the best questions to ask to ensure you are working with someone that aligns and is in agreement with the culture that the company wants?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, that is, you do need to test the waters. Of course, you would have a regular interview process with the individual to try and get to know them and ask them those questions to feel them out on their thoughts and positions on topics and their thoughts about leadership and management. But again, in my particular instance, most of my clients have chosen to hire me for a project. And the project typically is successful and it works out well, and then we move to retainer. But an hourly basis or a project basis to kind of test the waters and maybe go on a few dates is a great way to see how that goes before you make a larger commitment. But it doesn't need to be a long commitment in any of these instances. You could say, we're going to work together for a month and see how that goes. I would just be cautious in that the deeper you invest in someone, the more challenging it's going to be if you want to cut it off in a short period of time, because there is a little bit of a ramp up period for that person to know your business. Although typically fractional executives are very experienced in industry and can get up to speed pretty quickly.
Amazing. Keep these questions coming in. Let's see. Can university students work as fractional executives?
Any person can work as a fractional executive if they have experience and knowledge that another business can use. It is part-time work as a 1099.
What are key skills that clients are seeing now in fractional executives?
Key skills clients are seeking. So I was recently told by a small business trade show organization that the top 3 were CFO, cybersecurity, and human resources.
Okay. Somebody asked a question a little earlier about finding CXOs.
I'm sorry, XOs?
CXO.
So my understanding is that X means whichever level, whichever position you want. The X stands for the M for marketing, or the E for executive, or the P for product. So
I think it's going off like the UX stuff, like the user experience design.
So I don't know what chief level that position is. To me, that would fall into chief product officer or chief development officer, but I've never heard of CX. That might be just my lack of experience.
Chief
Chief
Experience.
Experience Officer.
Yep.
Thank you, Kimberly. That is any, again, I would say that any single person can be a fractional leader. Often when I talk about the chief level positions, it's because you as a small business owner or entrepreneur are trying to garner the experience of someone that has made it to that C-level suite. So they've kind of been through all the phases of the organization, and that's what adds value to you, that they can help you. I have never worked in an organization that had a chief experience officer, but there's a big need for customer success, customer experience, individuals to help any small business owner. But that is typically I would say that's a field that is a little bit more down the path of an organization's growth cycle, maybe when they're in maintenance and sustainment, as opposed to an initial growth phase.
Another question here. All good stuff, folks. Let's see. Can you describe the successful onboarding process for a fractional C-suite?
A successful onboarding. And again, I think that is going to be really dependent on each individual organization. Let's play that out for just a moment. If there was a construction company that perhaps needed a chief human resources officer, a successful onboarding is to spend maybe a day with them and make sure that they know the lay of the land and what states you're working in and what the compliance laws are and where the employee paperwork is, and get them into your payroll system, your HRIS system, and or establishing those systems and processes. But if you're working for a marketing agency and that marketing agency needs a CFO, the onboarding might be giving the person a week or so to look at the books and understand what the financial goals are for the year, introducing them to the team so that they can begin to strategize about the next steps. So I really do think that's very company specific, role and specific then to the role that you're bringing on.
Yeah, I think they were asking similar, like, do you treat it as the same as a new hire? And I think your answer was yes.
Yeah, I do. I don't know that they would go through the full onboarding, but again, some of you have 2 employees and you might need a fractional executive, and others of you have 25 employees. So that scenario looks very different. You could have a conversation with me, myself, and I, and go out to lunch and have that or that onboarding experience. But it really does depend on where the company is at that particular time.
Awesome. Law is not my expertise, but we're gonna try here. So somebody's asking about what about the new labor laws that it now says if somebody's considered a material part of your business, that you need to make them a W-2 versus a 1099. Is that affecting the C-suite fractional market?
No, and I would say that those laws are going into lawsuit and dispute as well at this time, because they are very confusing. But material, if you follow the Department of Labor questions, in order to keep someone a 1099, they make their own schedule, they work for themselves, they typically have other clients. You as the business owner are not their sole source of income. They have their own computer. A fractional executive is going to meet all the criteria of a 1099 and not an employee.
Somebody says, thank you.
You're welcome.
A lot of legal questions here today. Is it best to hire an attorney if you have 2 independent contractors in different states and you're in another state?
Yeah, so I did say something about individuals being in different states, and I was specifically speaking about employees. When you have 1099 contractors in different states, they are independent contractors, and you do not need to follow any specific laws to their state, only your state, because they work for themselves. They are independently employed. So I don't know in what scenario you would need to hire an attorney, except if you need someone to draft a subcontract agreement for you. And there are also legal services out there online that you can buy subscriptions to and get your own contracts.
Okay. You mentioned this a little bit. I just want to double click. So during your presentation, you mentioned, when it will be pretty clear when you don't need the CXO, CFO, the fractional C-suite peeps, right? How do you open that conversation to graduate them onto other opportunities?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I understand your question.
How would you recommend severing the fractional C-suite relationship?
So are you saying as an employer, small business owner, I have an executive already and I want to dismiss them and bring on a fractional person?
Or no, dismissing the fractional
Ah,
to,
to move on,
yes.
to move on and hire someone. I would say that a fractional executive that is serving their client will actually present that to the client before they even know it. I would say that the fractional executive has an objective to, you work together and you establish goals about where the business needs to be in order to take that next step and that leap. If there's a financial impact, there's a business impact, there's a system and process impact, and they would be working together to reach those goals. So a clearly defined relationship, I think, everybody would have full transparency that you've met the goals and it's time to move on. The small business owner may say, I think this is working out just great. I don't need to hire someone else. If you're available 10 hours a week, I just want you to stay on and keep being my person and doing what you're doing. And they may never sever the relationship. But again, a fractional executive, his job is to help that business fly the nest. So they should bring that forward.
Another question here, will the use of fractional expertise be acceptable to venture capitalists when you're raising money?
I've never pondered that question, so please give me just 1 second. Yeah, I don't see any downside to that. I don't have any firsthand experience, but venture capitalists would be eager to know that you have experienced executives on the team that aren't draining the bank account. I think that's pretty significant. So it really is a very smart business way to go to get the level of experience that a young small business needs. So you have the resources of a 50-year business.
Mm-hmm. And to stay in the VC landscape a little bit and venture backable companies, many of them may not have big budgets to afford these fractional executives. So in your experience, have you seen fractional executives take less pay for equity? How would you go about navigating that?
Yeah, I think that is dependent on each individual fractional executives, and fractional executives could be self-employed or they could work for a fractional executive company. I do have peers out there in the space that are whole companies of fractional executives. They might have different regulations. Most individuals work independently and can make decisions. However, they see fit to work with that organization. So they may choose to say, I'm really committed to this concept or this business or this project. And yes, I am going to take percentage of ownership in exchange for money. And I've actually done that for some of my clients as well, because I really wanted to be a part of that organization and I knew they couldn't afford it. I have also had nonprofits ask me if I would give them a nonprofit discount, and I have done that in exchange for their recommendation. So each of us have the flexibility of pricing it out as it works for the client and the individual and the individual's availability.
Mm-hmm. And Somebody who's chiming in on the VC backable question. We have found VCs open to fractional executives. We got intros to some startups through VCs. Nice.
Thank you. Thanks for adding that. I appreciate it.
Q&A. I'm seeing if there's
Great
any...
questions today.
Yeah, great
I
question.
love the engagement.
Let's see if there's any pre-submitted questions. We'll give it another moment or so for questions, but what are some personal challenges that you have experienced as a business owner?
Are you asking me or anyone out there?
Yeah, somebody's
Personal
asking.
business. What have I experienced? My experience right now is honestly the same for each of you, and that is there is not enough time in the day. And through my different corporate roles, I have had teams of people. And I keep looking around going, where are my people? Because I have a lot more work to get done and I don't have enough hours in the day. And that really is my biggest challenge. So I do work on outsourcing. I'm a big believer in dividing and conquering responsibilities, whether it's among employees or contractors, optimizing my own skills and abilities, and outsourcing anything that I don't like to do or I'm not great at. And that's how I think businesses scale.
Yeah, amazing. And where do you go to find those outsourced resources?
I have two, again, mostly LinkedIn, but I have also used my local university and obtained some interns. I have a fantastic team of marketing interns from the University of Maryland, and that has been a terrific experience.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and they're all looking for work experience too.
Yep, yep. And they're great. So it's almost the exact opposite of a fractional executive that has lots of years of experience. The reason I also love bringing in younger folks is they have a completely different perspective. And because I work in HR, I really need to stay in tune with the new generation and how they process work and perceive work and want work to be, because I'm a little bit more old school. So I like that variety of ages.
Yeah. And Elise is saying, amen to that. There aren't enough hours in the day. Well,
No, there
to
aren't.
double down on that one a little bit, what are some time management hacks that you use? You mentioned delegating, but just in
Oh
general.
yeah, delegating for sure. I use my Google Calendar like it's one side of my brain. I am also ADD, so I tend to kind of over document in terms of color coding and time blocking and moving things on my calendar so that I ensure that things get done timely and have a priority level based on color coding.
Mickey's saying same.
It's critical.
Well, so given everything that we've discussed today, we always like to end our events with a key takeaway. So given everything that you covered, what's the 60-second to 2-minute overview? If somebody was going to dial into the last, couple minutes of this call, what's our key takeaway from today?
Thank you. That's a great way to summarize. As a multi-time small business owner, I would say that fractional executives are the way to grow and scale with the experience and the knowledge that they have that are never affordable for a new startup and small business. I would encourage you to consider fractional executives in all areas so that you can optimize your skills and abilities and work on the business and they can work in the business.
Amazing. Well, Stephanie, we don't have any more questions, so we're going to wrap a little early today, but thank you so much for joining us today to share your time and expertise. And for everyone in the room still, thank you for joining us. We hope this is valuable. And we've got a bunch of other programs and resources on the way. So keep a lookout on our newsletter. And Anna's also going to drop a link for those links and resources. But thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to welcoming you all back online soon. Thank you again, Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.